Yo, welcome back to Daryl D TV. I'm Daryl D, your host, and today I want to show you one of my favorite records. Now, this record I want to show you is off of the legendary Def Jam label. Yes, that Def Jam label. And this group that was on Def Jam back in the early 90s is some of the baddest white boys that ever did it. Yes, no, not those white boys, the other white boys. Third base, and one brother too. But yes, this is one of my favorite records. Let me tell you one of the reasons why this is one of my favorite records. As you can see right up here in the corner, it's autographed to me. This is an autograph from Pete Nice. Now let me give you a little close-up on that, where he goes, "Word to the third," and that's to Daryl D. You know what I'm saying? Let me tell you how I got that autograph from Pete Nice. This past July, when I was vacationing in New York City, my homeboy Jay Blast told me, "Yo, I got to take you up to the Hip Hop Museum. We gonna link up with Pete Nice, who he's a close friend of, and we're gonna tour this museum." Now, for you that don't know, the Hip Hop Museum in the Bronx is a must-see. It's a must-see. If you're in New York and you are a hip-hop head in any way, shape, or fashion, if you're in the old street dancing and b-boying, if you're into graffiti, if you're into different record labels, if you're into fashion, if you're into the subway culture, any aspect of New York hip-hop culture, you have to go there. Now, it also features cultures from other places. There's a huge presence of Los Angeles and California hip-hop culture in different places. I've been to the museum twice. The first time they started with the 70s and they took it up to I think the mid-80s, if I'm not mistaken. Right now what they're featuring is from the mid to late 80s up to like maybe the mid 90s, early to mid 90s. They are still in the process of moving into a high-rise building. They're still building this high-rise, so I don't think they'll be ready for another few years. So they can only have so much in the actual museum at a time. So this was my second visit, and this stuff was more of the late 80s to early 90s, early to mid 90s type of stuff that I was seeing in there. Pete Nice has a huge part of the Hip Hop Museum. I believe he's a coordinator at some capacity, and a lot of his own personal items, collectibles, things that he has got his hands on or collected or had from those early days are in this museum. So this was only possible because my homeboy Jay Blast knows Pete Nice, and Pete Nice agreed to meet us up there. Ooh, there's a spider on my lens. Hold on. All right, he's gone. And we did this little tour. So if you check some of my other videos or my blog or even my Instagram, all things Daryl D, you'll see a lot of stuff, a lot of pictures and things that are featured at the underground museum, hip hop museum in the Bronx. So we got there, and Pete Nice pretty much after hours gave me a personal tour of this museum, and it was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had to be escorted by this old school, if you will, rapper from this legendary label that Russell Simmons and Rick Rubin and Jazzy J started. It was just an incredible experience, and I'm very grateful to Pete Nice and Jay Blast for making this happen. So after the tour was over, or after we finished walking around and I got to view everything and take a bunch of pictures and whatnot, right before we were leaving, I pulled out this 12-inch and I asked uh, Pete Nice if he could sign this for me, which he gracefully did, and he was more than happy. And I love it when you pull out a record and artists are actually happy to see their material, in its vinyl form. And if you know me, you know that I collect autographs, and I love getting autographs from, some of my favorite artists. And it always serves as a memory of the day that it happened and what I was doing that day and where I was in the world when it was actually happening. So big ups to Pete Nice, big ups to Jay Blast. And again, if you are in New York, go to the Bronx, go to the Hip Hop Museum. You'll be glad you did. And there are some things in there that, trust me, you didn't even know existed. So thank you for hanging out with me. This is Daryl D, and this is one of my favorite records.